The rhythm of healing, the octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make. In strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. I am KJ Alexander here with my co-host, Tanya Octave, and today we have a lot of important information to dive into. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and let Tanya tell a little bit more about herself and what this podcast is about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Octave, and we are going into Season 5 of Trauma and Social Work Podcast, where we will be discussing and diving deep into my book called Heal the Mind, 7 Strategies Towards Mental Wellness, Happiness, and Success, Exploring Trauma, Mental Wellness, and Ways to Live a More Balanced Life. And before we begin, just a simple reminder that this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended for medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Although I'm a licensed professional, this is not a formal type of treatment. We may talk about things like hypnosis and meditation and things that we would do in a therapeutic, from a therapeutic perspective, but it's not a form of treatment. For individual questions about your wellness, your happiness, and your success, please seek out a professional. And if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, do call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Great. Awesome. That was amazing. So with that being said, I want to make sure I tell the audience, if you haven't already, follow this page on Spotify, YouTube, and any other platforms we post episodes on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes in the future. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so starting off here, I want to talk a little bit more about the book. And for our audience who may not have as much information yet, if you could please just give our audience a little bit of background information, how this book came to be and what inspired you to write it.
Well, the book is called Heal the Mind, 7 Strategies Towards Mental Wellness, Happiness, and Success, and it's easily available on Amazon. And how this book came to be is life became difficult. I tell you, when I hit my 20s, things started to change in my life, and I had to grow up really fast and learn how to navigate the world, and often felt like I was in isolation. I knew in my 20s, after having a relationship, that I didn't want to suffer in the way that I had been suffering, and I wanted to make changes. And there was this idea that, why am I dating the same people over and over? And I'm sure some people in the audience probably could relate to that. I didn't want to keep making those changes. I didn't want to keep making those same type of choices in relationships. And so that pushed me. That pushed me and nudged me to really want to figure out, how do I resolve that? How do I move from a place of suffering and depression and sadness? And I mean like deep sadness. I'm the sadness that hurts in the bottom part of your gut. How do I move from there to this place of bliss, to this place of compassion, to where I'm really feeling emotionally stable and well? And that's when I started to develop the Octaves method. Now, it took me many years to get there, because I was doing little parts of the Octaves method at a time. Sometimes I'd be working out and then I'd go get a burger. Or sometimes I'd become vegetarian and eat really good, but then I wasn't working out and I wasn't doing any meditation. And so I said, I had all the tools, I was just using them at a different time. And so that's really why I developed the creation of the Octaves method. It's something that we can do all the time to bring more stillness into the mind, to let us know that we can move towards wellness, that we can take control of our lives and move in that direction. I'd like to share a little part of the beginning of the book, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
This is just the disclaimer that I talk about, because I am a mental health licensed in California and Nevada, and I like people to know as they listen that this isn't a form of treatment. So, like the book and this podcast, it is for informational purposes only, and it is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease. The materials of this book, and as you listen to the podcast, are not intended as a substitute for seeking out professional assistance. The information contained in the book is simply just to give you some direction, as well as in this podcast, as a place of where to start, how to begin your wellness journey. And if you need some motivation, we're going to both motivate you along the way. This book does not indicate a patient or practitioner relationship. However, if you'd like to seek professional help or support from me and you reside in California and Nevada, let's chat a little bit about what that could look like. And so that's a little bit about that part of the disclaimer. And who is this book and the podcast really for? Who's the audience? This book may claim to help everybody who wants suggestions and ideas about improving their overall health, including early career professional, college students, young parents, elderly adults. Relatively, it's for anyone, whether or not they're active or inactive, but they want to make a decision to be well. They want to move from sickness and a disease state, whether that's mental, physical, or spiritual, into a well state of mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. And that's why I encourage people to buy this book, for its over 20 years of experience that I have invested in learning how to heal the mind, body, and spirit. I make no guarantees of your success in implementing these strategies, accepting the risk involved, and understand that these steps toward wellness are specific to each person, and what works for one person may not work for another. This book is just a starting point on your wellness journey. And so I want to be as authentic and honest as I can at the beginning of this.
Awesome. Wow. So yeah, it seems like you have a really well-rounded, thought out process as far as how you approach the book. And I think it'll definitely benefit a lot of people to take some information from that. So I wanted to just dive into your personal experience. So for my first question, I wanted to know, you talk about facing physical, mental, and emotional challenges. How did overcoming these challenges impact your spiritual growth personally, and how did overcoming them contribute to you creating the Octaves method?
And I kind of alluded to this a little earlier that growing up was difficult. So once we leave high school, we ventured into this adult world, and sometimes parents aren't present in the same way they were before. Sometimes of us we've learned how to navigate life without really having parents around
Yeah.
in ways anyways. And so the transition a lot goes in now how do I show up in the world as an adult with engaging in adult relationships. But I'm bringing up all of this other stuff. I'm bringing relationships from fifth grade into it. I'm bringing relationships from fifth grade, from high school, things that had been unresolved. I'm bringing along with me on that journey. And when I got into who I identify as the first love, that I experienced in terms of an intimate relationship. I believe that we are born to our first loves, and that's usually your mom or your dad. But as we grow older, we start to develop more intimate relationships and developing of our sexual ideas and beliefs of how we want to show up in a sexual way. And so with that and along that journey, I got into a relationship that was very difficult and painful. There was a lot of beauty that occurred in that relationship, a lot of great things that taught me a lot about my character and how I wanted to be. But it was also painful, and I knew it wasn't a physical experience that I wanted to experience again. And so I think that's what pushed me into wanting to do something different. And even if I even back up a little bit and explore a little bit about my own childhood, I was born in a world where I felt people loved me. I felt like people were attracted to me. I had friends. I felt like people were always willing to go the extra mile to help me out. So they saw something in my character because it wasn't about physical beauty. This was like at 2, people were willing to help out and be supportive, but not just at 2, at 10 and at 12, when adolescence hits in and like parents don't necessarily want to be around you because they feel like you're too emotionally expressive, but that other adults were welcoming, like teachers in schools, other adults in the community. And so I think that helped to build my confidence in how I began to stand up. So it was more than just what happened into life as I experienced it as a young person, but it was bringing all the other stuff and all the other experiences to that. And then you fall in love, and then if something happens, pain sets in. And
Yeah.
that deep pain in your gut where you feel like you can't move and you don't want to eat and it's miserable, it's depression.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that story, no doubt. So yeah, I wanted to just move on to my next question. I know there's a lot of people listening, and I wanted to give some practical advice for people who may be in the situation that you were in at that time. So if you could speak to someone who is just in the beginning of their journey, what are some practical things that someone can do to kind of start observing their spiritual well-being and begin to cultivate that inner peace?
So one practical thing is to master silence, is learning how not to speak when those thoughts come and you just want to be like, what did you say?
Yeah.
Huh? And your defense mechanisms want to kick in, and that ego is trying to protect you because that's what it does. The ego
Yeah.
knows you better than anybody else. It was there at birth, and it'll be there at physical death. There are some things you can do in terms of working with the ego and learning how to negotiate and things like that, which is why I think this work is so beautiful. But to get back to your question, learning how to work with the thoughts. There's something in cognitive behavioral treatment that we explore in terms of how our thoughts affect our feelings and how our feelings are connected to our behaviors. And so if we could work on controlling those thoughts, it determines how we may feel about a situation, which could determine whether or not we're reacting or responding in a situation. And that's the beautiful part that I find, is that I can learn to be quiet and silence the mind and silence the thought Now, there's all this agitation that can arise because it's supposed to. That's kind of like typically how it works. But if I were to say some practical things, if we were to operate in a world, if we learned how to maybe sit with our thoughts before speaking our thoughts, I think that that would be a beautiful place. I did want to share my dedication because this part of the book is
Okay.
very meaningful for me.
Yeah, sure.
This text is dedicated to the Creator. I hope I live the life that pleases and serves you with compassion and humility. I appreciate all the life learning lessons provided to me, even though it was painful. It was necessary for my growth. I know my choices and decisions will continue to be guided through spirit and wisdom. Thank you to my mom, Mary, and my dad, Albert. I was born to you for several reasons which continue to be discovered. Your lessons continue to teach me and guide me through my purpose. You remained supportive and believed in me when I was lost. Thank you for being available to me in your way. To my two faithful, honest, and loyal men in my life. My lovely husband, Mike, you agreed to be on this journey with me many years ago. Our journey has been beautiful, has had beautiful experiences, and you continue to live up to your word. You keep me grounded, and I am honored to continue to share this journey with you. To my brother Ed, you push and challenge me. Your intellectual strength is inspiring me, and this teaches me to think deeply for myself. You listen to me in ways that no one else can. I am grateful to be blessed with the opportunity to take part in the parenting of 3 children, Kamau Jr., Jasmine, and Justin. You inspire me to be a better mother and a better stepmom and a better woman and a better human. Lastly, to all the families, parents, children, social workers, psychologists, and integrative experts I have met along the way. Our work continues to inspire me. Even though we may have spent limited time together, it is never limited but constantly occurring in my thoughts and actions. Interacting with you has inspired me to find and write practical solutions to the challenges we all face. You have been my teacher, and your willingness to do challenging work is what made the material of this book possible. Thank you for the countless number of conversations, your desire to ask for help, and your ability to influence your life and advocating for resources to make real change. We can all heal thy mind. And I just think that that is an attestament to what my experience has been on my wellness journey, is to be thankful in gratitude, but also in compassion for everyone else. There's an African proverb that I learned early on in my time at UCI, and it was from the teachings of Ptahhotep, and I can't remember it verbatim. Although I did memorize it, I haven't memorized back then. It says something to the extent of that you learn to have conversations with those who are intellectual and those who are ignorant. Some of the best conversations I've had with those who were perceived to not be book smart. And they've been very much blessings in my life and in that journey.
All right. So diving back here into the topic at hand, I wanted to ask you a little personal question, honestly. So I'm sure our audience would like to know, what inspired you to explore a wide variety of spiritual practices?
So I wasn't necessarily born into a variety of religious and spiritual beliefs. I was kind of told, here, go to Sunday school, play with the other kids, learn about God, do some arts and crafts, and go home. And that was great. But as I came into learning more and growing up and starting to have my own thoughts and how I wanted to show up in the world, I wanted to find a deeper connection. And even in my reflection, I remember having a few conversations with God as a child. And during those moments, like, I always knew God existed, and I always felt like I was protected by evil. I kind of describe it as like a bubble. A bubble's always kind of been around me. That wasn't anything that I questioned as a child. The belief system shaped part of how I started to see myself as a child, knowing that there is God and that there is this protection gives you a significant way in how you start to develop this very kind of core part of your self-esteem. And although it changed a little bit around adolescence, this was the foundation, and I never forgot about it. And I even remember there was a time in high school, and I had to pass this test for some particular reason, and I hadn't studied, and I think it was probably due to sports and not having enough time. And I said, God, if you really exist, give me an A on this exam. And this wasn't something I used all the time. This was something that just happened one time. And if I pass, I'll never question it.
Right.
And I don't know if you or people in our audience have also had similar experiences like that. But when you ask God and God reveals him or herself to you, then do you listen, or do you kind of still go back to some of your old ways?
Exactly.
I learned to listen. When God talked, I learned to listen, and I think that's part of what has also made my life kind of a little bit easier in terms of making adjustments and having flexibility of thoughts with mind and stuff like that.
Okay.
I also recall, even when you were a child, that there were things that I wanted to do as a parent in raising kids. I wanted to explore my kids to different cultures. So we would go to Japanese restaurants where we'd have to, like, I had a kimono, and we'd have to sit on the floor and learn how to use chopsticks. We'd go to Native American celebrations, which it can be very terrifying for a young kid when they're seeing all these beautiful feathers and colors and dancing, and they're not used to that. But it was a great experience for me. I don't know so much for the little ones. And I knew that culture, there's always a key, no matter what culture you come from. And I knew that there was always something special embedded in different cultures. And I was going to find out what that specialness was. Either was it through their traditions or rituals, their food, the way that they express themselves with family, how they see themselves as they show up as family members, which looks different. And I felt that that was one of the things God wanted me to be open and receptive with and embracing, instead of judgmental and critical. And I think that's why also, like, exploring different ways of thinking about spirit became significant for me.
Awesome. I think that was very insightful, and I'm glad you were able to share that story with us today. So just a few more questions here before we wrap up. I wanted to just ask you, you have mentioned Mayat a lot in your book, and I wanted you to kind of speak on how the ancient philosophy of Mayat helped influence your journey towards wellness.
I became attracted to Mayat in my earliest conscious memory would be around high school.
Okay.
And I was in a couple of groups and organizations, read a couple of books, so I know I had a curiosity, like, who is this Mayat? And when I went to college, this is also a period of time where you can explore new ideas, you can discover different identities as a part of your personality. Like, you can have a sense of freedom if you choose with thoughts and beliefs and things like that. And so I became a little bit more fond of the connection and how beautiful Mayat was with these 7 virtues: truth, justice, righteousness, propriety, balance, order, harmony. I was like, that's how I want to live my life. I want to be honest in everything that I do and how I show up, because what matters at the end of the day is really between me and me, me and God.
Yeah,
And having
absolutely.
that conversation, am I honest in that way? And so that has when the loving relationship started. And it's only been, I'll say, around 2016, 2017, where I started to dive more into it actually being more of a spiritual and religious practice. And boy, it has been transformative in my spiritual guides, my earthly spiritual guides here, who's really been able to help me navigate what ancient civilizations believed in terms of religions and ways of being.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's important for people especially in today's society, to kind of take a look back at history and see what some of these ancients were doing, because it may be able to help us even in small ways in our present lives today. So that was great. I'm glad you were able to share that. So my
Can I
last
share
question.
a memory that I have?
Oh
with
yeah,
you, Bill?
please, please
I
do.
remember it was, I want to say our 6 year hour, as if I just enmeshed myself into your life. So it was
Right.
really your 6th grade trip that we took to Washington, D.C. And
Okay.
one of your close friends wanted to be a history teacher, and I could never understand. I didn't like history in high school. I felt that it was too structured and really didn't give a truth. It gave one perspective, but didn't really give a whole perspective. And I was so curious about your friend in terms of him wanting to be a history teacher. And now that I reflect on it, it's like, what if there are history teachers out there, but they're world history teachers, where they tell things and share things from different perspectives, and they don't just isolate it into one perspective. Because for me, that's trauma. When you have your thoughts and they're black and white, we create trauma, internal, psychic trauma. So we could be born into families that says you're only supposed to think this way. I don't know. I think that possibly could lead to some form of trauma if that way is disrupting how you feel like you should show up in the world. But what if there's a possibility of expanding it and giving options to people for people to choose to see what fits right for their spirit? That was just a
Yeah.
memory I had that I don't know if you would do it, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I did a lot of traveling as a young adult. I think that's probably a big part of the reason why I believe I'm a pretty well-rounded individual today. And I'm glad I got those experiences for sure. So yeah, my last question here, just before we wrap up, I noticed you had reflection questions basically at the end of each chapter. So how do these reflection questions serve as a tool for personal growth and mental wellness?
so what I do as a psychotherapist is talk a lot about affirmations and ways to get things into the subconscious mind, but also to be reflective. Remember earlier I shared some thoughts about slowing the mind down, and if there was something practical, learning silence as a really good tool that could probably get you out of a lot of situations and having
Yeah.
less kind of a drama in your life,
Right. Yeah.
per se. But I would go into meditation and I would ask, how can this chapter of this book, what questions, what intentional questions can be reflective of that? And then I'm also taking in information from my spiritual guides. I'm also taking information from the intellectual, philosophical conversations I'm having with a bigger group of people. And I'm formulating questions that is a starting point for you to kind of explore how you want to show up in the world and how you want to create the wellness plan for you. I did want to share a little bit about the next part of the book, and it talks about
Okay.
my personal journey to mental wellness, happiness, and success. And here is a little picture of me, and it's one of my favorite pictures as a child. I'm about maybe 4 or 5, and I'm at my dad's house, and my dad is dressing me that day. This is how I remember, because when your dad dresses you, you look a certain way. When your mom dresses you, you look a certain way. I think many people probably can relate to that when they see
Right.
older pictures. So I am a private practice clinician who helps people who have experienced trauma attain physical, mental, and spiritual wellness using an integrative approach based on the acronym of my last name, Octaves. I provide tools and guidance so that my patients or individuals that I work with can move toward healthy living, a positive mindset, and confidence. However, I'm not just a clinician who guides and gives strategies. I have struggled with depression and anxiety, battled weight gain, and the disease of Hashimoto's, and worked through identity issues. I'm a bi-ethnic female raised by a single parent. In the early years, I knew what it was love. I knew what it was. In the early years, I knew and was loved by my daddy. When he was supposedly absent from my life in sixth grade, that's where I began to feel abandonment. Growing up poor, I struggled in school academically and had obstacles and setbacks because of my ethnicities and gender. In college, I got pregnant and had a child at 20 years old. My son's father and I stayed together for a time. Because of the increasing conflict we both exhibited, we separated, and I became a single parent. However, I remained in school, worked 2 to 3 jobs, and was a single parent with no financial support. All of those events impacted my physical and emotional health. I experienced traumas through the stories of others without even realizing it. And as this pattern continued, I became emotionally, spiritually, and physically unhealthy. I started to have health concerns including obesity, precancerous thyroid issues, Hashimoto's, and hypoglycemia. I knew if I didn't find another way, I was moving along a path of disease. Now, if I just stop there has to be people out there who can relate to that. Are you making choices and decisions in your life that are moving you along a path of disease? And if there are some barriers, if there's some subconscious work, let's get started so that we can get you on that wellness journey. So, I have changed my life physically and emotionally and spiritually. Now, after many years of working on it, I am free from disease. My mental health is optimal, so I don't suffer, enabling me to assist others on their wellness path. Over a lifetime, and after implementing the strategies explored in this book, I laugh easily and I can enjoy everyday life. Eating healthy foods as a vegan, I also experience and practice meditation, working to become the best that I can be with a healthy mindset so that I can guide others. Building a positive rapport with my patients and clients, I am skilled at helping others discover who they are as well. If you are looking for strategies to improve your health and need the hope to heal and move towards wellness, this book is a great tool to help educate and assist you on your journey. And then I will just go over the 7 components: observation, spiritual health, compassion, ego health, therapy, emotional and mental health, animals, playful inner health, Victo's nutritional health, exercise, physical health, and socialize, relational health. And it's more than just a relationship with others.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was very informative. I believe our audience would take a ton of value from this video. And once again, the book is Heal Thy Mind. It's available on Amazon currently. You guys should definitely go check it out. And yeah, I think that was a great episode, and I definitely look forward to future episodes. I want to remind the audience, if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel to catch further episodes in the future. We plan this to be a weekly series in order to dive into certain aspects of this book. And with that being said, any closing remarks you wanted to add?
I just wanted to offer that there are some ways that people can get we're going to go through the entire book, and so I hope that people continue to watch weekly. But what are some things that we can do now? One, you can go onto my website at info@tanya-octave-lcsw.com, and you can sign up for a newsletter. And I'm hoping to get that newsletter out every 2 to 3 months to keep you informed with practical tips, things that you can do in upcoming events. I also want to talk about, in terms of this book, if you go to the last part of this book here, it says participate in an act of selfless service, and it gives some ideas of what it's like. And when I think about things that we buy as gifts, what if you bought someone the possibility of developing their own wellness journey, right?
Yeah.
You sign it and you give it to them. You could also buy one I also want you to buy one for yourself, but like as the holidays come, or for birthdays or celebrations, you can buy one and sign that. And what a perfect gift that I think that people can really cherish, because there's a lot of people out there suffering.
Yeah,
Also,
absolutely.
I'm available for trainings and workshops. I also do some guest presentations on other podcasts. So if you think that I might be a good fit for you, let's connect to my team and we will see what we can navigate in that process.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, that is all the time we have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget to hit that like button. And until next time, be safe and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Wraps up another episode. I hope today's discussion provided clarity and tools you can use in your daily life. If you're ready to take the next step in the healing journey, I'd love to connect. Head over to my website to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It is a great opportunity to ask questions and see how we can work together. And while you're there, download my complimentary workbook designed to help you reflect, grow, and move towards mental wellness, happiness, and success. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. The Rhythm of Healing, the Octaves Method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make, in strength and in stillness our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The Octaves Method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.